Let's turn the mute button off and try that. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Weekend News Bulletin. My name is Trey Harris. Thank you for joining me. I need to remember after I am done to change that because it's not Weekend News Update, it's Weekend News Bulletin. So that's just a mental note for me. Sorry about that. Let's see. So let's get right into this, shall we? All right. So this is our first story of the day. Let's get over here and we'll take a look at it. Give me just a second. There we go. All right, and I think, don't quote me now, but I think we covered this story last week. So all right. This is from Law Enforcement Today, and this was sent in by one of our listeners. So, Amy, thank you for sending this to me. Like I said, I think we covered it last week. But just to recap, the article title says, "Wake Up America, Forget Defunding the Police. Democrats Plan to Expand Capitol Police Across the U.S." This is a post by Pat Droney from July 11th, 2021. The following editorial was written by a retired chief of police and current staff writer for Law Enforcement Today. Law Enforcement Today has been sounding the alarm bells for a while about what we see as a move to federalize all law enforcement in the country. While the Biden administration identified, quote, domestic white extremism as the most serious threat facing our country more than China, Russia, Iran, that rang those alarm bells even louder. This week, the alarm bells reached a fever pitch when it was learned that the same police calling to, quote, the same people calling to, quote, defund the police, that's our police, not their police, are planning to expand their police beyond the borders of Washington, D.C. For those of you listening on audio, this is a tweet from Mike Belcher. Efforts to expand Capitol Police outside D.C. and particularly in conservative states must be refused by governors and resisted mightily. And he has shared this. It's a quote tweet which says the U.S. Capitol Police will be fielding military surveillance equipment as part of sweeping security upgrades as the police force pivots toward becoming an intelligence-based protective agency following the January 6th attack. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin recently approved the Capitol Police's request for 8 persistent surveillance systems. Ground, medium, which is a PSS-G-M units. So, make of that what you will. I'm not familiar with that. The system provides high-definition surveillance video and is enabled with the night vision. The system does not include facial recognition capabilities, according to the Pentagon. Yeah, because they're trustworthy. All right, according to the New York Times, the U.S. Capitol Police are planning to expand outside Washington, D.C. into Florida and California. And yes, we did cover this last week on Rumble because I used, we compared them to the Gestapo because that's what they are. Opening regional offices to address the rising threats against members of Congress. The scheme is designed to, quote, to better protect lawmakers. Here's a tweet from the New York Times. 6 months after the January 6th riot, the U.S. Capitol Police is planning to expand operations outside Washington in an effort to better protect lawmakers, beginning with the opening of field offices in California and Florida. So let's think about this for a minute. We already have federal law enforcement agencies. The FBI comes to mind, the article says. So why on earth do we need to expand the U.S. Capitol Police into a nationalized police agency? I don't know. That's the question, isn't it? It's all about control. And, of course, I'm preaching to the choir on this, but 2020 proved that. It's all about control. So I don't know. It's sad to see, and the person's right. This is something that governors need to resist. So check this out. This is from the Epic Times. Black Lives Matter blames deadly Cuban protests on the U.S. government and defends the regime. Black Lives Matter, this is an article from Lorenz Deschamps from July 15th, but it's been updated on July 16th. Black Lives Matter is blaming the U.S. government's cruel and, quote, cruel and inhumane economic embargo for the current unrest in Cuba, while praising the communist regime for its solidarity by granting asylum to, quote, black revolutionaries. The Marxist organization has faced strong criticism since posting a statement on July 14th in response to protesters that have erupted in multiple cities across Cuba, where demonstrators have called for greater freedoms and an end to leader Miguel Diaz Canel's authoritarian regime. In the note that was posted to its social media profiles, the group condemned the 1962 U.S. embargo, claiming it was instituted with the, quote, explicit intention to destabilize Cuba and, quote, undermine the right of Cubans to choose their own government. What a stupid remark. That is so dumb. And, of course, this is directed, and most of you are familiar with the way social media works. So, especially if this was put on Twitter, it's only going to people that are going to see BLM's posts and nothing else, because they don't read their history books, so they don't realize that Cubans didn't choose their government. It was thrusted upon them in the revolution that was started by Fidel Castro with the help of Che Guevara. I mean, this is high school level history. It's obvious. Now, I studied this because I found Che Guevara's tactics, his guerrilla warfare tactics, very fascinating as a teenager. I just didn't understand how somebody, and it just, like, because I would see people walking around with Che shirts on, and I'm like, I didn't understand how they could walk around with a shirt with this revolutionary who was an evil person and died scared, miserable, and alone, by the way. So it's just, I mean, the ignorance of people in this country continues to baffle me. And I know there's going to be people out there saying that I was a white privileged kid that went to private school. But that shouldn't matter. I mean, I think everybody should go to it. I don't think governments should run schools. I'm all for defunding the public school system because it does no good. It's once again, it's a measure of control. They have to control them young. That way they can come out and they're nothing but mindless drones and zombies. But in the words of Biden, anyway. So, I mean, what can you say to this? This is my message to people. If you don't like the United States, please, by all means, feel free to leave. We're not going to beg you to stay. I promise. I'm not. Good riddance. Get the hell out of here. And, you know, I don't know. You know, forgive me for using a word like that, but I really don't know what else to say, because they have literally brought hell with them. And anyway, yeah, so there's that. I mean, it says the largest protest that the communist-controlled country has seen in decades erupted over the weekend after citizens rallied for freedom. The Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, who rejected the claim that the United States is to blame for Cuba's unrest, said on July 12th that the main factor that led people to the streets lies with the mismanaged economy of the nation and the communist regime's failure to supply its citizens with basic needs. Because that's not the government's job. Of course they're going to fail. Senator Marco Rubio among others, also rebuked the group for the claim. Oh, just sit down, Marco Rubio. I don't even think anybody takes him seriously anymore anyway. What a sellout. I'm not even going to read his quote. He gets on my nerves. Cuban leader Diaz-Canel, in a televised address on July 14th, conceded that government shortcomings in handling shortages and other problems played a role in the protests, while also urging Cubans to not act with hate. Before his announcement, the Cuban regime had only blamed social media and the U.S. government for the protests, which were the biggest in Cuba since a quarter century ago. The BLM statement, which was posted around the same time as Diaz-Canel commented about the revolt, was quickly disputed online, including by the group's own followers, urging them to take the post down. Quote, very disappointing and uninformed statement, one person wrote. Another said BLM's view of Cuba's situation is quote, a horrible misrepresentation of what's happening. Well, that gives me a little bit of hope. I mean, here's the thing. People are losing so much of the misguided faith that they placed in BLM because the leaders do nothing but they're literally gaining off of the victimhood that they are. They're advocating for victims and by mouth, and they're literally gaining for themselves and not doing really anything to help the people that they're supposedly standing up and protest for. So it says in the note, BLM also praised the communist regime for its, quote, historically demonstrated solidarity with oppressed peoples of African descent and, quote, protecting black revolutionaries, such as Assata Shakur, also known as Joanne Kesamard, a former member of the Black Liberation Army who escaped from prison in 1979 while serving life for the execution-style murder of a New Jersey state trooper. She was granted asylum by former Cuban leader Fidel Castro. She remains one of the FBI's most wanted terrorists. BLM, known for organizing protests against police brutality in the United States, didn't mention Cubans' call for, quote, freedom against an oppressive regime and a widespread report of police brutality sparking controversy. Quote, disgusting, despite the Cuban dictatorship's murdering and beating of protesters, many of them black. BLM's statement on Cuba condemns the U.S., praises the Castro regime, and makes no mention of the atrocities being committed by the dictatorship, said Giancarlo Sopo, a communication strategist who worked on President Donald Trump's re-election campaign. So, there's that. Just absolutely disgusting. And what gets me is all the churches that they really think that the U.S. is not under judgment. What? The church is a joke. I said that on Facebook earlier this week. The church is a joke. All right, so this next article is from Blaze Media, and it's by Dave Urbanski, and it says, complete BS. That's a quote from CNN's Aaron Burnett. It says, CNN's Aaron Burnett gets no bleeps as she blasts toxic juice. I like the way John Hall puts that, so I'm going to use that. Toxic juice hesitant conservative politicians and journalists. So calling out what they characterize as BS and literally using the word on air is nothing particularly new for CNN talking heads. Yeah, apparently this is down here it says that Jim Acosta called Fox News a BS factory, and in the way they are. Chris Cuomo said it, talking about Donald Trump. And earlier in 2020, host Anderson Cooper, during an interview with Rod Blagojevich, called BS on the disgraced former Illinois governor's claims that he was wrongly convicted of public corruption. Now what? During her Wednesday's Out Front show, CNN's Erin Burnett decorated her disgust with conservative figures' vaccine. Well, ruined that, didn't I? Hesitancy with a BS cherry on top. Burnett began her segment by highlighting, quote, a deadly disinformation about, this is a quote, deadly disinformation about COVID vaccines, much of it coming from Republican lawmakers and right-wing media. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what she sounds like, but she looks like she would sound like a Karen, so that's the voice I'm going to do. With that, she showed clips of GOP lawmakers such as Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky and Representative Lauren Boebert of Colorado stating their disagreement with getting the shots. Afterward, Burnett chimed in saying, quote, it's not just skepticism and fear-mongering from lawmakers. Of course, right-wing media reaches millions of Americans. Then more tape rolled showing the likes of Fox News host Tucker Carlson and Laura Ingraham calling the idea of forcing toxic juice on Americans a scandal and anti-democratic and anti-freedom. Burnett was clearly annoyed and let her 8-letter word fly with no bleeps. It's stunning. All of those people are smart enough to know that what they're saying is complete you-know-what. And that's the problem. They should be ashamed. All right, and they've got a clip down there so people can see it, but we're not going to play that because, I mean, why? No use giving CNN any airtime up here because CNN is an absolute dumpster fire. And I'm really hopeful. There's rumors saying that they're trying to sell CNN studios, so wouldn't that be wonderful? That'd be a gift from God. All right. So, this is from the Epic Times, and I thought this might be good news. I mean, I don't know. I really honestly haven't been following it, but it popped up in my inbox. So I figured I'd share it with you guys. So, Epic Times. A judge rejects Arizona's motion to keep election audit records private. A judge on Thursday rejected the Arizona Senate's motion to dismiss a public records lawsuit relating it to its independent full audit of ballots cast in Maricopa County in the 2020 election. The lawsuit was filed by watchdog group American Oversight and sought records of communications between Senate officials and external vendors working on the audit, including Florida-based cybersecurity firm Cyber Ninjas, a private company hired by the Arizona Senate to oversee the audit of Arizona's most populous county. It also sought documents related to the cost of the audit, donor information, and its operations. Quote, it is difficult to conceive of a case with a more compelling public interest demanding public disclosure and public scrutiny, Judge Michael Kemp of the Arizona Superior Court in Maricopa County wrote in a 7-page ruling. And there is a hyperlink to the PDF, and the link to this article will be in the description of the show, so make sure you check this out. Kemp said that he, quote, completely rejects the arguments presented by the defendant's lawyers. Quote, nothing in the statute absolves Senate defendants' responsibilities to keep and maintain records for authorities supported by public monies by merely retaining a third-party contractor who in turn hires sub-vendors, Kemp wrote. Keeping the election audit records private, quote, would be an absurd result and undermine Arizona's strong public policy in favor of permitting access to records reflecting governmental activity, the judge said in his decision. Kemp said records on who is funding the audit should be released to the public, saying that the $150,000 the Arizona Senate is paying Cyber Ninjas, quote, appears to be far short of paying the full cost. Quote, the public does not know who is financing the remaining costs, he wrote. Kemp said information related to the audit related to the audit information is covered under the state's public records law because Arizona Senate President Karen Fann had said that the audit is a public function. Fann previously stated that the remaining costs of the audit are covered by donors and contributions. Quote, starting now, the Arizona Senate is going to have to face real public accountability, Austin Evers, American Oversight's executive director, said in a statement. He goes on to say, for months, the public has been asked to trust the word of senators about the sham audit of the 2020 election. Arizona law does not allow the Senate to outsource democracy and shroud it in secrecy. The ruling makes clear that the Senate must immediately begin releasing records to the public. Meanwhile, Democrats on the House Oversight and Reform Committee on Wednesday launched a probe into Cyber Ninjas. In a letter to Cyber Ninja's CEO, and there's a hyperlink to that PDF as well, Douglas Logan, House Oversight Chairwoman Carolyn Maloney, a Democrat from New York, maybe they should change her name to Carolyn Baloney, that would be funny, and Representative Jamie Raskin, a Democrat from Maryland, said they are probing whether the company is working to, quote, reverse the result of a free and fair election for partisan gain. Here's the thing. Is just release the stuff to the people. Let us decide. Or did they forget that the Constitution says we the people? And it's not like Joe Biden said in his weird State of the Union address or whatever the heck that was. We the people is not the government. No, we the people are the ones that are supposed to be putting them in power. But I doubt that's what's actually happening. The pair asked for documents related to the audit, including information about how it is being funded. They are also asking for any and all communications between the cybersecurity firm and former President Donald Trump or his allies. I have no problem with them releasing stuff to the public. I think it should all be released to us. I think they should just release everything from every state, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona, all of them. They should release them to us and let us decide. But they'll never do that because then they'll lose their power. So, yeah. So this is interesting. This is an interesting article. So more than 25,000 people apply during first week of free lifetime handgun carry permits in one state, which is Indiana. Indianapolis, Indiana on July 1st. By the way, this article, for those listening on audio, is from Law Enforcement Today. On July 1st, the statement that... Oh, man, I cannot talk today. The state of Indiana eliminated all fees for a lifetime license to carry handguns at the Indiana State Police website was quickly overwhelmed by the response from residents. A tweet from Lori, Indiana says, here in Indiana, a gun permit is now free. The website crashed. So many people were logging in. I've had mine, and our safe is stocked with weapons and ammo. According to authorities, in the first 24 hours, more than 7,000 people successfully applied for the free license. In the 7 days following the new law, more than 25,000 people had signed up for the free license. A lifetime permit had originally cost $125, but is not free of charge. But now it is free of charge, and now the state is struggling to process the thousands of requests. Indiana State Police Public Information Officer Sergeant John Perrine said in a statement, as expected, we've had an influx of applications on our website. We're asking folks that want to apply for that to be patient. On their website, ISP warned applicants that due to the high volume of applications, there may be delays in accessing the firearm portal. Quote, we're sorry, due to a high number of current applicants, we must limit the number of individuals applying at one time. Please try again later. That's incredible. So yeah, there's that story. That's absolutely awesome. So let's go to the next one. And honestly, this isn't going to be a long show because I know we're flying through these, but we've got a lot to record this weekend, including a follow-up on this story, which will air next week on the main Sunday podcast. We're going to do an apostate report on this because this is absolutely ridiculous. Now, I know many of you probably don't keep up with what's going on in the mainstream churches, but for whatever reason, I do. It's a part of what we do here at Course Correction Radio. But so just to and for those of you who can see this on the video, you can see that this is what this is. But those listening on the audio, so the Southern Baptist Convention, I believe it was in June, I believe in June they had their convention and they elected their new president. The new president is Pastor Ed Litton from Redemption Church in Alabama. I think he's near Mobile, Alabama, excuse me. So, but not long after he was elected, a huge plagiarism scandal has erupted, as it has been found out, at least, there's been allegations that Pastor Ed Litton has been plagiarizing sermons from the former president, local boy right here in North Carolina, J.D. Greer, who is the pastor of Summit Church in Durham, North Carolina. Now, let's get into this article because this is from Newsweek. This is a mainstream news organization. This is what Newsweek had to say. Pastor Ed Litton compared to Nixon as plagiarism battle rages in the Southern Baptist Convention. Pastor Ed Litton, president of the Southern Baptist Convention, has been under fire recently after being accused of plagiarism involving his sermons for the Redemption Church in Mobile, Alabama. Now, it's got a screen capture from the Capstone Report, and we're going to get more into the Capstone Report next week when we do the full coverage of this, because it is so bad. So the Capstone Report says, unrepentant Ed Litton clings to power in the Southern Baptist Convention and has two memes of Richard Nixon undergoing, I'm not a crook. So Newsweek had found earlier this week that over 140 videos were either unavailable or hidden across several playlists on Redemption Church's YouTube page after allegations that he was plagiarizing sermons by Pastor J.D. Greer began to spread. So literally what happens, and I've been keeping an eye on this, I've been keeping an eye on the Southern Baptist Convention ever since they elected their new president, and this is what we have going on. So somebody breaks a story about how, and I'm going to show it to you here in a minute, about how J.D. Greer and Ed Litton's sermon sounded an awful lot alike. And then I think it was, so anyway, after that, all of a sudden, Redemption Church they privatize over 140 videos. And then Justin Peters, who is known for doing ministry about exposing the falsehoods of the charismatic movements and the Word of Faith movements, did like an hour-and-a-half podcast on it. It was actually very insightful. So anyway, Litton, who was elected president of the SBC in June, has seen significant backlash for his statements regarding the controversy, including being subjected to a visual comparison of himself and former President Richard Nixon. In an article published Saturday by the Capstone Report on Litton's apologies and statements regarding the issue, a visual gif of Nixon with a flashing caption that reads, "I'm not a crook," is at the forefront of the story. The article itself criticized the Alabama pastor's interview with the SBC This Week, the SBC's official podcast, in which Litton defended his actions. Quote, "Our elders and leaders made the decision to take down the sermons because they felt that the people were going in and pulling things out, they believe, of context," Litton said. "And so to protect the church, the well-being of the church and their pastor, they said we are pulling these down." End quote. Litton had been accused of plagiarizing sermons written by Greer from 2019. In some of Greer's sermons, according to the Capstone Report, Litton allegedly copied word for word without giving any proper credit. So here's the thing. Like I said, I've been looking into this since this broke. And now, and like I said, we're going to go over this more next week, but I just want you guys to know it's not just a few sermons from J.D. Greer. They have found sermons of him stealing people's sermons that go all the way back to people like Tim Keller. Him stealing Tim Keller sermons from 1991. And word for word, mind you, I just showed it to my wife the other day because she didn't believe me. And I showed her, she got about, it was like a 8-minute clip. She got about halfway through it. She was like, okay, I've heard enough, and just handed me the phone back. So this is no small task. 140 videos went missing, and it looks like it looks like there might be some serious plagiarizing going on here. And the significance of this, like, I'm not trying to brag or anything, so please don't think that, but I'm an extremely busy guy. Sorry, my allergies are acting up. I'm an extremely busy guy. I work a full-time job. I've got a small homestead here that I do. Plus, I do, 2 shows a week? I got the news show, which honestly, that one's pretty easy. It's mostly just reading stories to you guys. But I love it. And I know I told you in the past that I didn't really see the need for me to do it. Don't get me wrong. Regardless of that, I love doing this. Now, as far as with the other ones, with the biblical preparation, I get extremely busy, but understand it's such a serious thing to present the Word of God to people. The book of James tells, it warns people not to become teachers because you're held to a higher standard. Now, imagine, if you will, the pastor of an entire huge church is not studying the Bible for himself, or at least it looks like he's not studying the Bible for himself, but is rather pilfering from other people studying, if in fact they're the ones doing it. Now, one of the things we're going to show you next week on the show is that there are websites where pastors can go and buy sermon outlines, so they don't even have to do the studying themselves. I mean, this is just rank apostasy, is all it is. So, oh my goodness, it's absolutely nuts. I'm floored. I'm in awe of how I knew the mainstream church was a joke, but my goodness. This just went from like a joke, like stand-up comedy, to like almost cringy to watch, like The Office gets. If you've ever seen cringe comedy, like mockumentaries like The Office, especially The Office UK, it's painful to watch some of those scenarios. And this is what that is. It's just absolutely, it physically hurts you to see things like this. Litton said in the podcast, the article goes on, Litton said in the podcast, quote, "I am asked by good people, why didn't you just credit JD? Now, I want you to hear my heart, because the heart's trustworthy, right? Isn't that what the Bible says? That the heart is trustworthy above? No, it doesn't, does it? It says the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it?" Anyway, he says, "I want you to hear my heart. This is not just an excuse or justification. I'm sorry I did not." Maybe he is. I don't know. He gave an apology to a lesson he learned. He gave an analogy to a lesson he learned from a professor when he was in seminary that taught him not to verbally cite everything he would reference. Quote, "When the diamond miner goes looking for diamonds," Litton explained, "he doesn't hold up the pick and the shovel. He holds up the diamond. Now please hear my heart. I'm not excusing myself. I'm just explaining my heart. I love my people and I want them to see Jesus. He's the diamond." Oh, so now it's okay that he stole from J.D. Greer, allegedly, because supposedly, according to Litton and Greer, they had this arrangement that it was okay for Litton to do it, but he took it and then tried to pass it off as his own to his congregation, which is wrong. But it's okay, because he just wanted to show him Jesus by any means necessary. Jesus doesn't care. See, this is the lawlessness that you're going to get in a in the Southern Baptist Convention, which, by the way, the last church I came out of was affiliated with the Southern Baptist. I wonder if, and I'm going to be looking before next week, which I think I'm recording the show tomorrow. So I'm going to look before tomorrow. Yeah, I'd be interested to see what they're saying about this. They're probably not. They're probably just going on with their silly little sermon titles that are just enough like mainstream stuff that they think it'll get the heathens out in the world interested in. Newsflash, it won't. And they should know this by now. I can't tell you how many events they've canceled after a year or two because, well, we were trying to get the lost people in, but it just pulls in Christians from different churches, because that's all who wants to come to these things is people that are already in church. Like, it should be obvious, but these knuckleheads don't see it. Anyway, the author of the Capstone Report article wrote that Litton's lack of actual repentance for the plagiarizing sermons proves that he cannot be trusted. I would say the fact that he passed off a sermon that wasn't his and thinks it's okay is evidence enough. Of course he's not going to repent for it, because he's showing him Jesus. That's all that matters. Jesus is the diamond. That's such a stupid analogy. I mean, let me not get myself worked up before I have to make another apology video. So, which, by the way, I will always make an apology video if I have to. I just don't want to have to put myself in the place where I have to do that. The best way to do something is like that is to not have to put yourself in the position where you have to make the apology. Just don't say the stuff. So anyway, they wrote, quote, Ed Litton and his handlers are clinging to power. It shows that they only care about power. These men love power more than they fear God. Amen. Amen. That is so true. Because one of the things we'll show you in the apostate report is that these men have condemned plagiarism, but yet they are completely silent when the newly elected president of the convention is caught in a scandal. Absolutely outrageous. Newsweek reached out to Litton for a comment, but has yet to receive a response. For his part, Greer gave his own statement on the subject and linked it in a tweet dated June 26th, in which he wrote, "Thankful for Ed's gracious and humble words. I have said this before, a culture of suspicion happens automatically. A culture of trust takes intentionality," Greer said in his statement. "Our convention desperately needs to build a culture of trust, and that starts with assuming the best about each other and giving the benefit of the doubt wherever we can. I am praying for Ed Litton as he leads us to focus on the Great Commission." What a joke! What a joke! Oh my gosh, that is the most non-statement statement I have ever seen. Yeah, you assume the best about each other? Look, I get it. We're all fallen. Hey, I get that. But number one, we don't put our trust in man ever. We put our trust in God and in his word, which, by the way, if you're a pastor, you should be reading it. Oh my gosh. Anyway, we're going to get to more of this next week. We're coming up on 40 minutes. So let me just, so you don't have to take my word for it, let me show you the actual video. This is from the Reformation Charlotte YouTube channel. So let's check this out. I want to give credit where credit's due. See, this is me crediting the source that I'm using.
There are two primary things that I believe you and I are to glean from this passage. If you're taking notes, this will be your outline for today. The first is we can see the responsibilities of those who govern. We can see the responsibilities of those who govern. This is, if you will, a kind of job description for the government.
I want to talk about two things this morning. I want to talk about the responsibility of government.
The second thing you'll see, and this is the most important part, the responsibility of those who are governed. That's most of us.
And I want to talk about the responsibility of the governed.
You think that many of our leaders are batty, and for good cause, I might add. But Caligula, who was Caesar around this time,
Was a Roman emperor by the name of Caligula.
Caligula was unfit to keep a pet, let alone run an empire.
Now, let me just say up front, he wasn't worthy of having a pet, much less being an emperor.
Let me just run you through a quick laundry list of Caligula's greatest accomplishments. First thing he does when he's in office, when he becomes Caesar, he has his mom and brother killed to make sure that they don't challenge his right to the throne. He openly committed incest with 3 of his sisters. He frequently would cross-dress and go out in public. He installed his favorite horse, Incitatus, as a senator, and then later promoted him to proconsul.
He killed his mother and brother to gain his power. He openly lived in an incestuous relationship with his multiple sisters. He was a cross-dresser. He literally made his horse a Roman senator.
I have to ask, what had the horse done as senator that earned him a promotion to proconsul, right? I mean, how do you even vote when you're a horse in the Senate? All in favor say aye. All opposed? Wait for it. Nay, okay? You get it, right?
Can you imagine that? A horse, every time the Senate gathered, a horse would walk in. It was the emperor's horse. When they voted, he would say, nay.
Often during gladiatorial games, which were cruel enough, Caligula would take random people from the crowds and throw them into the arena to be attacked by the wild animals just to entertain himself.
They had gladiatorial games, and he would randomly have these beasts of men who would go into the crowd to unsuspecting fans who were there watching the gladiators, and they would grab one of them and throw them into the pit where the lions were.
But the point is, this was no Abe Lincoln. This was not even a James A. Garfield.
It was absolutely terrorizing. This guy was no Abraham Lincoln.
Tim Keller says it this way. He says the increasingly secular West is only just beginning to experience the level of hostility that first century believers faced. The 21st century persecuted church, places like China, of course, Afghanistan, and those places, they experience it every day. It is this type of state to which Paul tells the Christian to submit to.
Tim Keller says something very interesting. He said the increasingly secular West, that's us, the increasingly secular West is only just beginning to experience the level of hostility that first century.
All right, I think you guys get the point. That is, well, cringeworthy to say the least. But and that's Tim Keller. That's the one that we're going to show. He even stole one of his sermons from back in 1991. And here's the thing about Tim Keller. Tim Keller is a Marxist. Tim Keller is dangerous. Tim Keller is a false teacher, as is J.D. Greer, and clearly is Ed Litton. So, I mean, you know what they say, birds of a feather, right? It's absolutely insane. So here's what I want you to do. Leave me a comment down below, or if you're watching this live, leave it in the chat. I mean, am I crazy? Am I overly picky? Is it because I have some sort of is it because I have some sort of like unresolved bitterness? I mean, I'll go ahead and tell you, I despise the SBC. But I also don't want to see the SBC crash and burn like this, because that's a symptom that something is, it's not a symptom, it's a result of things being wrong. I would love to be wrong about the SBC. It's heartbreaking. Anyway, tell me below what you think, whether it's in the live chat or in the comments section. I'd love to know what you guys think about this. Is it just me? Or is this seriously something wrong? This is if this was a carcass, this would be like a rotting smell that you could smell from hundreds of feet away. This church is infected. It's dying. It's stinking. It's festered and it's gross, and they all need to read Ezekiel, just the entire book of Ezekiel, especially chapters 7, 8, and 9. Because I'm telling you, what happened in the book of Ezekiel is coming to America. And this church is not ready for it. As a matter of fact, they're part of the problem. This is just so heartbreaking to see. I'm flabbergasted. And if you've seen the apostate report before on our Brighteon channel, the first 2 apostate reports, the apostate report was supposed to be a Brighteon exclusive. But the stuff just started getting so outrageous, I had to bring it onto the main YouTube channel. So if you haven't seen it yet, go check out our second apostate report, because it's about the crazy stuff that J.D. Greer has said. This is the man that Ed Litton is plagiarizing. Oh, guys, I think I'm going to cut that off there. It's just, this is so disheartening. It's heartbreaking, and it's just, look, if you pray for the Southern Baptists, pray for the people in the Southern Baptist Church. The everyday pew sitter that just, this is what they grew up in. They don't realize that there is anything else. We need to pray for those people, that the Father wakes them up before it's too late. Because under men like this, they're being led straight to hell and they don't even realize it. Guys, I appreciate you hanging out with me for almost 50 minutes. Like I said, I enjoy this every single week. The weekend, I look forward to the weekend because I know I get to spend time with you guys in the chat. And that makes me so happy. So let me come back on here so I can say my final goodbyes to you guys. I love coming on here every single week. It means the absolute world to me. Like I said, it's something I look forward to throughout the week, is getting to Saturday and Sunday. Number one, because it's the Sabbath on Saturday, but because I know that there's a group of like-minded people that I can come and just hang out with every single weekend, and that's you guys. I could not do this without any of you guys. So God bless you all. Thank you all so much for your prayers, your support. Thank you. If you find this valuable, please share it out with your friends and family. And just thank you guys for everything you do. Thank you for being faithful to Jesus. Because that's what's important here, is your walk with Jesus Christ. And I hope that this is helping you in some way. And we'll see you guys tomorrow on the main podcast. As of right now, Sarah's going to be doing something about forgiving the, quote, unforgivable. Now, we've recorded it once already. But the Father has told her that it has to be redone. There's a lot of critical stuff that got left out of it. So be looking for that. We're going to redo that here probably either as I'm recording this, probably tomorrow night. So that'll be Saturday night. For basically while you guys are watching this, not long after that, we'll re-record that so you guys can see it. Anyway, I'm rambling at this point and I need to go to sleep. So we'll see you guys next time on the Weekend News Bulletin. Y'all take care.